let's try and compact that down into some highlights. It was green and go today, and you saw it early on. Joris Nieuwenhuis, Niels Vandeputte, Joran Visura, Vitsimiusen got a great start there in the green and white. Michael Van Turnhout got a strong start, but early on, we could see early on in this race, conditions at the start very different to what we finished in yet again.
Especially that section that they just showed there. It was tricky, but nothing like the riders were going to come across in those final few laps. Leading group of 5, and it was the new duo of the Pals Southern-Ortiz Industrial Bell cycling team, Michael Van Turnhout and Gerben Kuipers, that really took control of this race early on. Vandeputte was a little bit further back, so they went on the move, and it was Kuipers who really upped the pace on that 3rd lap.
And you could sense today that Michael Van Turnhout was loving having a teammate like Gerben Kuipers back at the front of this race.
He really was. Initially it was Visura that gap opened up to, and it was Vandeputte changing bikes earlier on, asking for a different setup at that point in the race, but it was a fair while before he could change bikes again, given the discrepancy in the speed from changing bikes compared to the racing line. We saw these team tactics kick in from these riders. Van Turnhout taking the lead into the sand, but he actually rode it beautifully. We wondered whether he was going to try and jump across to his new teammate ahead and go duo at the front of this one. Vandeputte on the back foot already. He was the man that eventually had to close down the gap to Kuipers.
He did it sensibly. Today, Niels Vandeputte's ride was very measured. You saw how now, as we said, the conditions that we finished in very different to what we started in. Niels Vandeputte, for me today, pitting strategy, absolutely perfect. And he made the most of the fact that he wasn't the best in the sand today. We can see he had to constantly kind of almost like scooter it through this time, but he just had that power to keep coming back.
Yeah, it was the power in the end that won him this one. It wasn't the technique in the sand. In fact, he struggled compared to Michael Van Turnhout in that section. But as we saw, the conditions got really, really treacherous for these riders, catching out Nieuwenhuis on that occasion, catching out other riders across the last couple of laps of racing. At this point, it was Visura and Van Turnhout clear, and it was the slip from Visura that held up Van Turnhout in this section that allowed those chasers back to the front of the race.
And it shows they're not, and that was the little crash there from Gerben Kuipers. It just kicked him into the netting. But for him, this was the point. Do you think this was the point where Vandeputte won this as well today, getting those fresh tyres and that fresh setup?
Potentially. We'll have to hear from him afterwards how much of a difference he felt that made. But this was the move where he ran that section, got off early, didn't even try and ride it, got up the inside of Nieuwenhuis and took that spot and went on the hunt for Michael Van Turnhout. This was the key on the last 2 laps. Van Turnhout pretty much always had a gap, so he had to ride these last 2 laps absolutely full gas. And it was Vandeputte that came through to the front of the chasers, and here we saw it on the last lap, that signature move now from Vandeputte to take the lead of that race. Those lower pressures on his bike underneath him through this section looking really, really good. But here it was over the bridge for the final time where Vandeputte really put down the hammer.
You saw there Van Turnhout, he almost stalled at the top. He had to look back over his shoulder, and he was looking back constantly. But a great start to the year here for Niels Vandeputte.
Really, really good from Vandeputte. Extends that lead, like you say. Van Turnhout,